Welcome to People Like You. Imagine living on land contaminated for years. That is the reality for people all over the world. Today, guest host Alexandra O'Brien, a current member of our team, talks to Mark O'Brien, the CEO of ERS, about the organization's mission, the incredible work ERS undertakes, and his testimony as a Christian. Don't go away.
So I think wherever you can impact people's lives and enrich their lives, it is incumbent upon us to do that. Sometimes you just have to stop and take a deep breath and look at what your priorities are in life.
Welcome back. For over 20 years, Mark O'Brien, CEO of ERS, has been taking contaminated land and making it viable again. Mark is with us today to share his vision for ERS and why he believes helping people in third world countries is vital. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. I think one thing we should let our viewers know is that not only are you a leader in our community, but you're also my dad, which is why it's an honor to interview you, so thank you.
Thank you.
So can you let us know exactly what ERS is and what you guys do?
Well, ERS is an engineering, scientific, environmental company. We're focused on environmental remediation. We do projects all around the world, including the United States.
And are your headquarters here locally, or are they abroad?
We're headquartered in Walnut Creek, California.
So you're a local?
We're local.
And where are you from originally?
Originally from Sydney, Australia.
And how did you end up here in California?
Well, I heard you had a little school here called UC Berkeley, which I believe is quite a good school. So I came here to do my graduate studies at UC Berkeley.
And did you know you always wanted to do environmental services?
No, in fact, I was studying physiology at Berkeley, and you find your way through life, you find different passions, and environmental science was a passion of mine, and this is where I've ended up.
And now tell us about how ERS Project South America began.
Well, I was doing a tour of Ecuador. A friend of mine had invited me down, and we saw a great deal of need in Ecuador, especially when it came into the area of environmental remediation. If you look at mortality rates around the world, they're closely associated with levels of contamination. So this became a focus for us. The government welcomed us with open arms, and we've been focused on Ecuador ever since.
Now, when you find this contaminated land, how do the officials react when you alert them of this?
Well, it's not only contaminated land, it's contaminated air, it's contaminated water. And ERS believes that everybody should have a right to clean water and clean food and clean air. Mm-hmm. So we've been involved in those projects in many parts of the world. This is obviously a need in South America as they strive to become first world countries.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, I've grown up, right? You're my dad, and so I've grown up in a Christian household, but have you always been a man of faith?
Well, I grew up in a Christian household, and I think my life experiences affirmed my belief in Christianity and in my God, so yes.
Mm-hmm. And what has God shown you so far in this journey that you've undertaken with ERS?
Well, I think He's shown me there's great need in the world, that those who have plenty should share what they have and try and assist those that don't have very much at all. Mm-hmm. When you go to areas in Africa where we did our original projects, people are looking to where their next meal is going to come from. So to be able to assist those people, not only provide environmental relief to them, but also to provide education scholarships, which our foundation does, and to provide work for those people is a big deal. So we're very proud to be involved at that level. I
think one thing to definitely note is not only are you focused in South America, but you're focused globally.
We are.
What other countries do your efforts take you?
We've been involved mainly in Africa, but our latest emphasis has been South America and Central America more recently.
Mm-hmm. So now take us back for viewers who, we're not science majors, take us back to the basics. How do you know if land is contaminated? Do you have to do research on it? Do you take sample tests? How does it, square one?
Well, square one, there are many needs throughout the world, and there's many needs in communities. Communities understand what issues they're facing. They may have issues with open dumps for solid waste management, and they will be aware that their groundwater is polluted, that their river system is dead. There's no more fish in the river system, so we can learn through that. We learn through environmental reports. But ultimately, we have to go and do an initial investigation and test the water and test the air and test the soil to determine what has that area been contaminated with, what have the environmental impacts been, and that's where we would begin our work.
And then what happens after that? Do you contract people to turn the land viable again in their own local countries?
Well, every project is different. Funding is always an issue, so we will either bring in our own funding when we're able to. We just recently won a World Bank project where we're actually doing a remediation and a dredging combined with dwelling development. So in that case, the World Bank is providing funding for our environmental services. Sometimes communities will reach out. Currently, we're looking to raise over $1 billion in capital with a backlog of projects we currently have. So we're looking to bring those finances to the projects so that we can take control and provide the services that are needed for those communities.
Now, South America is would you say, a religious continent in its entirety?
Mainly Catholic,
Mainly
yes.
Catholic. And so when you do take this land and make it clean for them again, are they so grateful? What is their response to you when they find out that, you as an American / Australian want to help them?
Well, they're very grateful, but I have found this correlation throughout the world, that it's almost this correlation where the poorer the people, the more generous they are. So in South America, I find the people that have very big hearts, very generous people. So of course they're overwhelmed when we can assist them.
Do you ever share about your faith when you go to these countries?
Well, it's not too difficult to share because they are, again, in South America, founded on a Catholic religion.
Right.
So yes, that's a topic of conversation.
And now where in this next year is 2016 going to take ERS?
Well, currently we're undertaking projects in Paraguay, in Peru, and in Ecuador. We're looking to move more into Central American countries such as El Salvador and Nicaragua. So we're going to continue to grow and expand and hopefully to continue to raise capital to support these projects.
Wonderful. Well, I want to discuss more of that when we come back, so don't go away.
When you can go into a community who are looking for the next meal and don't know where it's going to come from, and to be able to provide them with a job so they can provide for their family is a very touching experience in my life.
We're back with Mark O'Brien, CEO of ERS. So we were just discussing your work in South America, but tell me, what compelled you to go down there?
Well, I was originally invited down by a friend who was looking at some projects in that part of the world. It became very obvious on that trip that there was great need in this part of the world for the work that we do. It was interesting. The first trip was to Ecuador, and we'd found that recently they'd changed their constitution where the environment actually had rights. So as they were becoming more and more aware of the impact of environmental contamination on their communities and on their environment, and they'd started to make some initial efforts. So when we saw a government who was willing to focus on this area, we finally felt that this would be a part of the world that we could actually bring our services and provide them and give back to those communities and make them better. So that was how we originally got involved.
It's incredible. Now, what milestones would you say that ERS has reached since its inception?
Well, I think it's always a challenge when you go into a country to get your first project off the ground, and we've got projects off the ground in many countries all around the world now. And once you do get those initial projects off the ground, your reputation grows, and people's belief in what you're doing grows, and people's trust in you grows. And I think a lot of the progress that we make is actually through trust that people have in the service that we are providing. So I think it's a combination of things that assist you to grow in these parts of the world.
What's been a hurdle that ERS has had to overcome with doing all these projects across the globe?
Well, there's more need than we can meet.
Right.
We have requests from all parts of the world,
Right.
And we're just one company. So for us to be able to prioritize and find those projects where we can have the most impact is always a challenge for us, because you don't want to say no to any community that's in need.
Right.
So that's always a challenge, and I think the other challenge we face is financing these projects. Some of these projects are very large, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions or billions in some cases. So being able to raise capital and undertake these projects is always a challenge.
How do you prioritize?
Well, we see where we can get the most bang for our dollar. How many people's lives can we change through the work that we're doing? How willing are the governments to work with us and assist us and support us in what we're doing? And how willing is the local community to come behind us and support us? So there's multiple levels of support that we need before we'll go into any country and undertake any work.
Right. So would you say you have a servant's heart?
I would say we try, yes.
And I've been around some of your colleagues and people you work with, and would you say that you try to encompass a company culture that, displays this servant's heart?
Yes, well, I think to give is natural, whether it's through more of a religious-based servant's heart or whether it's just through humanity. So I think the staff we have is an incredible staff. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They're some of the smartest people in their relevant fields in the United States. Generally either high-level engineers, principal engineers, or PhDs in the various scientific areas that they work in. And I think they all have a very large heart for giving back to those who are less fortunate than ourselves.
Now, previously you mentioned the next countries you're going to go to in South America. So what is the overall goal? Are you trying to help every single country in South America? Are you just focusing on certain ones? What is the ultimate goal?
Well, I think, again, we're focused on projects where we can make big impacts into multiple people's lives. We're focused everywhere from the Amazon regions, the 9 countries of the Amazon down in South America, all the way to Central American countries. Again, we get more requests than we can process, so it's a matter of prioritizing those. I don't know that we have an overall goal that we need to grow to a certain size, or we need to be in as many countries as we can possibly be in. I think that with the funding, that will generally drive how much work we actually do. The funding at the end of the day will drive those projects.
Now, you also do a lot of work here locally. Are there any places in California that our viewers will have know of that you've helped?
Well, we've been focused on a lot of military bases, so a lot of military bases have been deactivated over the years and they're contaminated. That hit the Bay Area very hard. So we've been involved in remediation of military bases. We've been involved in supporting dredging activities for major ports. We've also been involved in airport development and work. So there's many projects in the local area and throughout California and throughout the United States that we're involved in currently.
Would you say that your upbringing of being a Christian has helped lay the foundation for such a successful company?
I think that's been a major consideration and component in developing a person from the foundation, and I'd like to think that our company is founded in those Christian principles, yes.
How did you personally come to know the Lord?
Well, I grew up in a home where my mother and father believed in Christ, and at an early age went through, associated with churches, and I think through my own development became a Christian.
Now, is there a personal testimony of somebody that you've helped, a certain official or a tribe of people from whose land that's been contaminated that you've made viable again? Have you heard any personal story that's really touched you and made you believe that this is a mission that you want to keep on doing with ERS?
Well, I think the most personal stories I have to share are, again, those people who have been in need. And those people who are in need become desperate. I remember early on in some of our African projects, we would fill our bus with lunches, boxed lunches, for the people that we would be visiting on our trips. And we would literally fill our van up with hundreds of boxed lunches. But, inevitably throughout the day we would run out of boxed lunches. There just wasn't enough boxed lunches for everybody. And I will always remember the story that in these boxed lunches would have a plastic bottle of water, something we take for granted here. And I can remember that we had an empty plastic bottle, and we stopped along the roadside at a community, and we held this plastic bottle out, and literally hundreds of children came running up to the van trying to take this plastic water bottle. Well, I later came to learn that it's very valuable to be able to transport basic supplies like water. If you don't have a container, you can't transport water. So I think to see that level of need throughout communities is incredible. So when you can go into a community who are looking for the next meal and don't know where it's going to come from, and to be able to provide them with a job so they can provide for their family is a very touching experience in my life.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to hear more about your testimony. So more on Mark O'Brien's testimony coming up. Don't go away.
Even though my wife has now passed, the impact she had, not only on my life as a Christian, but her family, all of her children, will continue.
Welcome back. So we were just getting into a little bit of your testimony. Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Well, I have 4 children, 4 beautiful children. I have 3 girls and a boy. The girls are the oldest, and they range in age from 23 down to 20. And they're either involved at university or currently working. And I have a son who is in his final year. He's graduating from high school this year.
Yeah. So, since I am your daughter and we can speak together as a family, we've had an incredibly tough year this year with the loss of your wife and my mom.
We have.
Has this shaken your faith at all?
You know, I must be honest with you. I have found myself questioning my faith at times because Andrea, my wife, had been suffering from cancer for 2 years. It was a long, hard journey for us. And I know that not only ourselves, but the whole Christian community we're involved with had been praying very hard for a full recovery. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So you do find yourself, why does God move in certain ways in your life? I don't know. It's only been recently that she passed away, and I don't know that I have all of those answers yet. But I still believe in God, and my faith has not changed, no.
What would you say has been the biggest learning experience from all of this, would you say?
I think one of the experiences I've learned is, even though my wife has now passed, the impact she had, not only on my life as a Christian, but her family, all of her children, will continue. As you know, Ali, she started something called Carols at the Capitol, that during the last 2 years of her life, while she was very sick with cancer, she continued to grow that organization, and I believe she expanded it to over 26 states, as well as into the United Kingdom. And I now see my children getting involved to carry that work through. She was also a great proponent and supporter of the National Day of Prayer, and she started that in our community. And I can also see how that's going to grow and continue beyond her life. So to see this happen, to see the rest of the world move on, even though you have taken a big loss, but yet to see her still impacting the work she did here, impacting the world, is an incredible thing to see.
I feel like I can say this as your daughter, but I think one thing that you and Mom definitely instilled in us 4 children was the importance of giving back. And we do, not only do we do that individually, but we stand as a family to give back. So why do you think it's important for everybody to give back?
Well, because I believe there are less fortunate people in the world than ourselves, and it doesn't necessarily have to be money. People can be empty spiritually. So I think wherever you can impact people's lives and enrich their lives, it is incumbent upon us to do that, and I feel very strongly about that. Again, whether it be in the spiritual world, whether it be in the financial world, whether it be in the environment in which I work. I think to be able to give back at all those levels is incumbent upon us, and I think it's something that God's teaching is all about.
You do have 4 kids, and everyone is younger. How are you going to ensure that everybody stays close to God and nobody really wavers or jumps off the deep end?
Well, at the end of the day, you're all young adults now, and there's an old saying, you can only lead a horse to water. I think your mother especially did a fantastic job of introducing all of you to the Lord, and through the example she set, I'd like to think she's instilled you all with the foundation you all need to move on with your lives and to put your faith in God.
ERS is focusing right now in Ecuador. What's the vision for 2016 besides the other countries? Where else will we be seeing your name?
Well, ERS is a global company. We're involved, again, in projects all around the world. Right now we're focused on some major infrastructure projects, which means building engineered landfills for communities, building water supply, remediating contaminated water and river systems for communities, all the way through to building roadways and bridges for communities out in the middle of the Amazon. So ERS will be involved in many different projects throughout Latin America over the coming years. We're currently undertaking a large dredge project, and we're about to begin the process of undertaking another dredging project in communities. So we'll be involved in many different ways.
How were you able to balance your work life, with such a struggle at home this past year with, mom and wife being sick?
Well, I think I probably do a poor job at everything because there's a lot of balls to juggle. But I think sometimes you just have to stop and take a deep breath and look at what your priorities are in life. And yes, you don't want to ignore your own family whilst you're pursuing these other activities. So I think it's important to gather the family and to meet regularly and still be a family even though our mother's gone.
What advice would you give to another family who's probably going through the same circumstance? What would you say?
I would say that whilst you don't always understand how God moves, is to stay strong in your faith and to continue to believe. And I believe at the end of the day I will see the answer as to why they took Andrea so early.
Well, I know my siblings would agree with me, but you've done a great job being our dad and a leader during this difficult time. So thank you for that. And then if anybody wants to kind of know more information about ERS and the work that you're doing and what projects you're undertaking, how would they be able to follow along?
Well, we have a website, erscorp.us. Our projects are listed on those websites, and they're more than welcome to go online and look at that website.
And any advice for any college kids who want to get into this field that you've taken on?
Study hard.
So it's not an easy field to get into.
It's a challenging field, but it's important that you not only do you get the appropriate education, but you also have a passion for what you do, because a lot of what we do is based upon our passion for helping others.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to add or let our viewers know?
I'd just like to say what a great interview you are.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. And for more information about the work of Environmental Risk Services, visit erscorp.com or ktln.tv. Remember that KTLN is a donor-supported ministry, and programs like this one are made possible through your support. Thanks for being with us. Join us again next week.